Okay, I think we are live. Yes. Let me just make sure. Okay, yes, definitely live. I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for asking. How are you doing? Okay, so we've got a few more people coming in. Let me just make sure I'm ready to go. Okay, I think we are. So welcome. How many of you have been on my sessions before? I run these every Wednesday, as some of you will know. And last week we did quite a big session on how to divorce a narcissist. It ran for the whole week, every day. We had a live, and the interaction was amazing. So yeah, it was so good to see that. Yes, you joined. Brilliant. I hope you found that helpful. So today, what are we talking about? Today is all about how to make arrangements for your child. And the way it works usually, if you haven't been before, you may not know, the session runs for about 45 minutes. I talk for 20 to 30 minutes, and then I will answer questions that are coming up for you. So if you're live on Zoom, then you'll have the opportunity to put questions in the chat box. Feel free to do that, and I will come to them at the end depending on time. But what I do love is for you to interact with me as I am going through these sessions, just because it makes me feel like I'm not alone talking to myself here, but also because with interaction, you will get something out of this session. Your fellow attendees will also learn from you. So it's great to interact with each other. You can also interact with me privately as well if you don't want to put it in the public chat box there. If you do put something in the chat box privately, I will not mention your name, so we can keep you anonymous, because I do understand it's quite difficult when you join a Zoom call like this. So before I start, let me know, where are you up to in your divorce process? Have you just started? Are you still thinking about it? You might even be here when you're trying to make that decision of whether divorce is actually the right thing for you. Are you in the middle of it already? Are you looking to get things moving now in the new year? Exactly what is coming up for you? Where are you up to? So that we can make sure what we talk about today is useful to you, and I can adapt what I'm talking about. So I'll just give you a little opportunity to get that in the chat box while I take a sip of water, and then we will move on. Okay. Let me share my screen while you're doing that, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat box while I'm going through, so hopefully you'll see this okay. I hope you can see that all right. Okay, so we're talking about planning for children today, and it's a really important topic because obviously it's something that everyone asks about. It's something that will bring up so much emotion for you. So I completely get why everyone asks about this. And it's something we need to talk about, really, especially with the holidays coming. What you will find is that there is a lot of discussion if you're already separated, and sometimes if you're not separated, there'll be lots of discussions about what's going to happen to the children around special occasions like Christmas, around New Year's, or just because it's school holidays, what's going to happen with them. So let me just see what you've written. Very initial stages of divorce. We have agreed we need to do this. Looking at mediation options now. Okay. This is my second time in your session. My situation has changed from last time. In my case, husband raised online solo application and I responded to it, but I don't know, do I need to start my finance and childcare, or should he start? Well, I mean, I can come to this at the end, but there is no, does he start or do you start? It's not a proceedings that you're starting right now. You're just trying to get things agreed. So let's come back to the subject that we're talking about. Thank you for sharing. I really love it when you interact with me, even if it is privately, because then I get to know more about you and what you might need from these sessions. I'll tell you a bit about myself. My name is Bhavna Radia. I am the owner of and the founder of Divorce Right, which is my company. I started this after my divorce. And there was a reason why I set up my own company. And actually, I do things very differently to most lawyers. And it is because when I went through my divorce as a family lawyer, I still felt like this wasn't just legal proceedings. This was an emotional roller coaster. It wasn't enough for people just to get a little bit of help, a bit of clinical advice from a lawyer, because this had an impact on every part of my life, every part of my well-being, every part of my mental health. And it affected my children massively. And I knew that it was going to affect my whole life massively. So it got me thinking about how I used to work as a family lawyer. And I felt like it just wasn't enough. It wasn't what people needed. They needed a lot more than just somebody giving you advice on a process. And so when I went through my divorce, I was so affected by it. My children were so affected by it. They were at the time 9, 6, and 18 months. So they were really young. And I was really worried about how I was going to manage financially, what would happen to them. And it was an agonizing decision to make. I absolutely struggled with the decision for so many years. But when I got to that decision finally, even then it was hard. It wasn't a decision that I could say I jumped into joyfully or anything. I found it really hard and I kept doubting myself. But once I made that decision, then the process of divorce was just, even though I knew what I was doing, I found it really tough to manage. Just making so many decisions, needing somewhere to talk to somebody about how do I tell the children, how do I communicate with my ex-husband, or he's doing this right now, what do I do about that? And of course, the legal side of it I knew, but you do need to get somebody to just talk these things through. And so I felt that there was something missing with how I used to work, and I wanted to work a bit differently. So yeah, I really felt I needed to bring something different to people. And what I've done is I've put my experience as a lawyer, family lawyer, together with my personal experience, and I bring something really different now. And I'll talk to you a bit about that at the end. I don't want to take up too much time right now. Okay, so what are we talking about? Children. And this is going to be one of the most emotional topics that we could talk about. Besides the one about domestic abuse, this is a really hard topic. And I don't know if you guys that are on the call have got children. Is this something you are worrying about? How will your time be split between you and your ex-husband or wife and the children? Because usually you've been living with your children, both of you, and you've been with them full time. And suddenly you now need to get your head around the fact that your children will be spending a lot of time away from you and a lot of time with the other parent. And it's really hard to think of your children being away from you. I have to say, I had to go through this. It did take time for my children to spend substantive time with my ex-husband, but even when they spent one evening away from me, I really struggled. And I had to really get my head around it, adjust, and start thinking that this is how life has to be because they need to spend time with their dad as well. And I have to say, it gets easier with time, and soon enough, you're filling that time where your children are away from you. You might worry that your children won't cope without you, or you might worry how the children will be when you are not around. when they're with the other person. And there's different elements that you need to consider when you are planning for this time that the children are away from you. So let's have a look at what these are. Well, the first thing is that there is so much benefit in them having contact with the other parent. It means that the children are better adjusted as long as they are spending good quality time with both parents. And the exception to this is if there are safeguarding concerns. So if there are serious concerns that you have, then we do need to look at whether contact should happen at all, whether it needs to be limited, what needs to happen with contact to safeguard the children. But generally, for most of you, you won't be worried about that. And it's really important that the children see both of you, because it will give them a sense of security and stability, which they really need during this time of divorce and separation, because things are going to be changing for them massively. And it does help them adjust when they know that they can see both of you and that both parents are actively involved in their lives. It makes such a big difference to them. And it promotes healthy mental development. So if you have a positive relationship with both your parents, you are likely to develop emotionally and socially better, and academically actually as well. So there's lots of different elements to why contact is so important. What does the law say about contact? So when we're looking at divorce proceedings, I've talked about this quite a bit. You may or may not know, but when you are going through a divorce, you start the divorce proceedings. That is a legal process that you have to start to end your marriage. During this process, the court doesn't ask you what's going to happen to the children. They don't want to know. They assume that as parents, as two adults, you can make the best decisions for your children. And so nobody will ask you what's going to happen. As long as you both agree, as long as you have come to sensible agreements, then the court will not get involved. But we still need to look at what the law says, so it gives you some frameworks to work towards. So the Children Act 1969 is the primary legislation that protects children, thinks about the welfare of the children, and looks at care in England and Wales. And this applies to all children under the age of 18. If you are married to the other parent, then you both have parental responsibility and you have the same rights and responsibilities towards the child as each other. So it doesn't matter that you're going through a separation. It doesn't matter that you're getting divorced. Both parents usually have the same rights and responsibilities. It may be that in your situation, one parent does more of the childcare. Maybe one person works full-time, the other person works part-time and does more of the childcare. Maybe that person does the drop-offs, pickups, homework, extracurricular activities, sorting out uniforms, taking the children to parties, whatever it is. It doesn't mean the other parent has less rights and responsibilities. You're just sharing the load of what's happening at home. So both of you have the same rights, and it's important to know that. If you are looking at what happens to children during, a separation and divorce, what you have to think about first is the child's welfare. Their welfare is absolute priority in any decision you make around a plan for them, but also around the finances. So they have to be the forefront of your mind, and any decision made has to take them into account first. So think about that. That's the paramount consideration. What is in their best interests? What would help them the most? What plans can you make that disrupts their life the least? And there's other factors that we need to take into account as well, and I'll list a few of them so you get an idea of the kind of things you need to be thinking about. The child's wishes and feelings, taking into account their age and their level of understanding. So you have to think about what your child wants. But this is alongside, obviously, what is in their best interests and the other factors that I'm going to talk to you about, because a child may say, I don't want to go and see the other parent. but you know it's in the child's best interests to go, and that this will promote healthy development for them. And so you will encourage them to go. And obviously, they may just be tired after school. They may just be wanting to hang out with their friends. Maybe they just can't be bothered to go. But it's in their best interest to go. So you do need to consider their wishes and feelings, but you need to balance that alongside what is best for them as well. But also, if a child aged 3 says they don't want to go, it's very different to a child aged 15 saying they don't want to go. So you have to bear their age into account here. And you need to think about their level of understanding, because all children are different at different ages as well. So, of course, their wishes have to be considered, but bearing in mind their age. If a child is saying to you, a child of 15 is saying that when I go for contact, the parent doesn't pay any attention to me, and they go out in the evening and always leave me at home, and they come back at 3 in the morning and I'm scared, you might need to take that into account. A 15-year-old is able to vocalize what is happening, maybe how scared they are. They're able to tell you clearly what is going on. But a 3-year-old may say, I don't want to go because the other parent doesn't take me out. You might have to discuss it with the other parent and not just take that 3-year-old's word. But obviously bear that in mind according to their level of understanding. The other element that you should consider when looking at a plan is the child's health, educational, and emotional needs. Your children may have needs. It might be health needs. For example, they may have a physical illness. They may need regular medical appointments, maybe medication, a certain type of care that maybe you have been used to giving and the other parent isn't used to giving. It may be that one parent is better placed to meet those needs. For example, if you have a child with a physical disability, and one parent has given up work to care for them 24/7, it might be that that parent is still best placed to look after them mostly, and the other parent can have contact subject to how that would work, bearing in mind the child's welfare. It may be that both parents work part-time and they're both actively able to get involved. You then need to make sure you have the equipment at both houses so the child's needs are met. There may be mental health needs. What does your child need around their mental health, their emotional health? What support do they need? Who is best to support them? And maybe your child might have educational needs. What are they? Can you both work together to help your child with educational needs? What is the best thing for your child? And you should try to ensure that your child's education isn't disrupted by the divorce. You want to try and keep some stability for your children. And this might mean coordinating with each other so the child attends the same school, possibly, or that transport arrangements are still similar. If there needs to be a change of school, and sometimes it happens, then you need to both work together, if you can, to make sure that transition is as easy as possible. If we can keep the things the same for children, it's really important as much as possible. I know it's not always possible. In my situation, when I went through my divorce, I stayed in the family home initially, and my children went to the local school as they always had been. This gave them stability. Their friends were nearby. We were very good friends with all our neighbors, people on the street. It meant we had a support system. It meant that nothing much changed for the children. But it quickly became clear that I couldn't remain in the family home. I had to move. And so what I did was I found a property which was a little bit away from where we used to live, but it was possible to travel in, and the children could still go to the same school, so I could maintain that stability for them. But actually, the secondary school that they would attend was local. So slowly, as they transitioned to secondary school, they were at a local school and their friends were nearby. It just meant I had to do a bit of running around for maybe a few years until my youngest had finished primary school, and she then went off to secondary school as well. So I did have to change things, but I tried to keep things as stable as possible. Your child's age is relevant as well. So, for example, if you're making plans, you might think a 2-year-old should not come back at 9 p.m. because maybe their bedtime routine is that they go to sleep at 7:30, and at the end of contact, maybe they need to be back home at 6:30 so they can have a bath, get into bed, chill out, and be asleep by 7:30. If your child is 15, then maybe 9 o'clock is not too late to come back on a Sunday. But you need to consider your child's age when you are thinking about what arrangements would work for you. And think about what the previous pattern of care has been. If you've been the main carer, the other person has been, say, working abroad, working away, they do shift work, maybe the previous pattern of care has to continue. But bear that in mind that sometimes it may be that one person is the main carer and one person goes to work full time and spends most of their time out of the family home. When we find ourselves going through a divorce, sometimes we have to change our working patterns, our life patterns, so that you can meet the needs of your children. And I often see parents saying, okay, I wasn't there so much because I knew the other parent was there all the time. But actually now I want a 50-50 shared arrangement, and I will make sure that my work is flexible, that maybe I don't work away, maybe I'll be more committed to dropping them to school and being involved in their lives because I'm not just going to see them every day now. And so it's acceptable for one parent, maybe who hasn't been the main carer, to change things up so that they can be there more. Something else that is very important is the harm that the child has suffered or is at risk of suffering. You have to take this into account. Sometimes I hear parents say, yes, I know that my child could, it's a bit unsafe, but the other person is saying that contact has to happen and I want to keep things amicable, so I'm allowing the child to go. You have to put your children first. If it is unsafe for your child to go for contact, then you need to consider what arrangements you make. It is not enough just to allow a child to go into a situation that is unsafe for them. So I have seen situations where young children, say at 6, are being left at home for very, very long periods, maybe through the night as well, and they are scared, they are locked in, and quite clearly this could lead to unsafe situations, so something needs to happen. I've seen situations where one parent is an addict, say drug addict or alcohol addiction, and they are not able to control when they consume these substances. So the child is with them. Possibly the child is very young and the child is being put in unsafe situations where, say, that parent is driving while under the influence of these substances. So you have to put them first when it comes to safeguarding. So when you make arrangements, think about these things. You have to put things in place that are safe for the children, that are in the children's best interests. I can see some questions coming in privately. If you've got any questions around this, do let me know, because although I'm going through it quite quickly, it can be quite a complicated arrangement that you're coming to. So now that we know what factors have to be taken into account, how do you actually share time? Again, really important thing to think about. When you're thinking about sharing time, you've got to take into account these factors. And depending on those factors, you then need to come up with a plan that's best for your children. One of the first questions would be, where would the child live? That's obviously really important. Who will the child live with and where will they live? Who can meet the child's needs day to day? Like, for example, one person may end up living near the children's school, and it might be the children live with them, but the other parent may have every other weekend and sometime during the week as well. But the children have a base, which is with the parent that's nearest the school, for example. Maybe one person works part-time and is better able to care for the children than the other person because they work full-time possibly. Maybe they work long hours or they're away a lot. I come across a lot of people doing shift work, and quite clearly children can't live with you if you are out most through the night most nights. So think about, where will the children live? Who is best placed to be the main carer? Or is it a situation where actually both of you could be carers and you could have this 50-50 arrangement, which I'll come to a little bit later? That, the courts really like that arrangement where both of you share time. So, but if one person has the majority of the time overnights, then what happens to the other parent? What level of contact would they have? And contact could start from alternate weekends, which is from Friday to Sunday. This is usually the basic contact that a parent would have. You'd usually see more than this, but some parents are not able to do more than that. And so every other weekend might be the basic agreement. You could do it so one parent has weekdays, the other parent has every weekend. You might do it so that you do 4 days, the other parent does 3 days, and you have set days. Or you mix up the 4 and 3. So maybe 1 week you have 4 days and it's Friday to Monday. And the following week you have 3 days. And that might be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You just got to set it up so both of you are then getting 4 and 3. It might be that you do 1 week on, 1 week off. So the children are with one parent on week 1 and with parent number 2 on week 2. And that is more a 50-50 arrangement. But there can be many variations on contact. It might just be every Saturday. So I've got a client right now, and at the moment, contact is every Saturday because the child is 7 months, 8 months, and it's not, the other parent does not want overnights because the child is so young. And so you need to decide what that contact should be based on the child's best interests, age, welfare, safeguarding, everything else. Be creative around this. You don't have to just say it's every other weekend. You could have it so that one parent is picking up from school and dropping off to school the next morning. And then you pick up from school and drop the child off to school the next morning. And so there's lots of different ways of doing this. Take into account extracurricular activities. It may be that one parent always does cricket with the child and the other parent always does dance, for example. So it may be that you carry on with those sort of arrangements. It may be that you've got to adjust the schedule according to both your work schedules. A shared care arrangement, as I mentioned, the courts really like this. They recognize that both mum and dad are capable of looking after children and that both mum and dad also go to work. So think about whether a shared care arrangement could work for you. It may be that, as I said, you have 3 days 1 week and 4 days the other, and then it swaps around. So both of you over the month, over the 4 weeks, are having the same amount of contact. It might be that you split the week in half. You might do 1 week on, 1 week off. Courts really like a shared care. It's really difficult, I know, if you've been the main carer, to move to shared care. And you might think about doing a tiered, a phased-in approach. So you don't just go from you being the main carer to you having half the time. You could do it slowly, so you're working towards shared care over a period. I had a client that did this, and it was over a year. Every 3 months we adjusted contact, and it was all set and agreed. Every 3 months contact changed, so that slowly dad also had 50% of the time. And it worked really well to do it tiered like that, so everybody is getting used to the arrangement. And I can see here you've put, somebody's put, what if you live long distance? And you have to take that into account because that's a practical issue. And if it is a long distance, you again still need to reach an agreement. And it might be that you have to go for the parent that lives furthest away picks up on a Friday after school, or picks up from home at say 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever time, and takes them back to their place, which I understand is a bit of a distance, keeps them till Sunday, and either they drop them off on Sunday or you pick them up on Sunday. And that might be the option that is right for you. It might be that it's just a day that you have every week or every other weekend. So it's 9 o'clock to, I don't know, 7 o'clock on a Saturday. So that parent could come in the morning and return that same day. So they're not traveling so much. Because obviously, if you are traveling 5 hours to come and pick your children up on a Friday, you've got 10-hour journey, 5 hours there, 5 hours back, and the same on Sunday. And it might be quite difficult to do. Saying that, I have seen parents that do that, and they are there for every sports day, every assembly, every piano recital, every other weekend they do these things. So it's still possible to do, but you need to think about how that works for the both of you, the children, because you don't want them being in the car constantly. But it's very important that they spend time with both parents if there's no safeguarding issues. I can see there's another question as well. Let's just have a read of that. Is it routine to ask the child's preference to live? And who does this? In terms of safeguarding, does abusive nature of the other parent, anger and aggression apply? There is domestic violence, but it's been primarily directed towards me. Really good question. There's a few good questions in there. The first thing, is it routine to ask the child? Depends on how old the child is. If you've got a child aged 3, they're not going to, they may just decide, and it may not be the best interest of the child. So if you've got a child aged 3, make the decisions yourself as parents. It may be that you go for shared care. It may be that there's just an obvious answer. Sometimes there is an obvious answer. It may be that if your child is 14, you can say, look, we both are happy to have you live with us. We're both happy to share time with you. What are your thoughts? We are not going to necessarily do what you say, but we would like to take your opinion into account, because actually you don't want them to choose. It's really hard for a child when you say, choose between me and the other parent. Even if both parents are there, it's really hard for a child to choose. Their loyalties are with both of you. They shouldn't be made to be put in the middle. So when I was making decisions, I remember as I got older, I would say to them, and it was very big, like schooling decisions, we were maybe moving out of the area. And I said to them that I would love to know your opinion, but it doesn't mean that you're making the decision. Your opinion will count for something, but I will be making the decision. And actually, the 2 older ones had different opinions anyway. So I had to make the decision. But it's really important we don't put pressure on them to think they are making decisions between parents. But I hope that helps around that. The child is 8. Okay, so right in the middle. I would say still at 8, it's probably best for you to make decisions. But you can ask their opinion, but they are really stuck in the middle. If there has been abuse, it depends what the abuse looks like. If it is verbal abuse directed towards you and the child hasn't ever seen it, it may be during school time that this happens, or there's always been verbal abuse away from the child. It may be the child is not affected by it. Courts and the professionals dealing with court proceedings recognize that where there has been domestic abuse, and the child has witnessed this domestic abuse, depending on the severity, that the child is also a victim. And there is a presumption that there is no contact unless there are very big reasons why there should be. So this is a new policy that came out maybe a few weeks ago, that if there has been quite severe abuse and the child has witnessed it and they are scared, that there should be a presumption of no contact until certain reports are done and we've assessed how the child is feeling and what they've witnessed and whether the abuse actually happens, because obviously both parents will say different things. So depending on what has happened, you said anger and aggression, but we still need more details to understand whether contact should go ahead. It's all to do with safeguarding. Is that child scared? Is there a chance that they could be the subject of domestic abuse, parental alienation, manipulation, exactly what happened? So there is a possibility you could stop it, but it depends on the situation. Okay, so how do we have a written plan? it is important to have a plan. It's important to have a written plan. I still don't have a written plan, and I'm 13 years on, and my eldest is 23, but my youngest is 14, and she still has contact in the way that we agreed it all those years ago. She has every other weekend and half the holidays. And we just know this. We've been doing this for 13 years. We never put it in writing. And we just adjust things as we need to if somebody's got something going on. Or like last weekend, my ex-husband was ill. He'd had an emergency operation on Friday, and quite clearly contact didn't happen. But you know, my children went to see him on the Saturday. So you adjust things as you need to, but this plan, if you are going to be putting it in writing, it doesn't have to be in a certain format. It's an agreement between you. It doesn't necessarily go to the court or anywhere else. So you can write it yourself. So what goes into this plan? There needs to be a schedule that outlines when each parent will have the children, who will drop and collect the children as well, what time will collection and drop off be, and where. Think about what happens during school holidays, what happens during school time, because it may be different. What you're agreeing may be very different during those times. I have Friday to Sunday, and let me just see if someone's come off mute. Can you please keep yourself on mute if you can? There we go. So think about how this needs to be. What arrangements do you need to put in place? If you can't do handover, for example, could you have a friend be there to do handover? What do you need to put in place for contact to happen? If you've got shared care, how will it work? Will the child be dropped off to school in the morning, and in the afternoon, the other parent will pick up, say on a Wednesday? Sometimes people do that so they can limit the time that they're seeing each other. Think about special days, which a lot of people miss, like your birthday, the other person's birthdays, children's birthdays, religious holidays, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, all the different important days to you. And also think about what happens if the parent wants to take the child away. So say, for example, you have half the holidays like I do now. Never used to, but I do now. During that time, so my ex-husband has 3 weeks in the summer, he takes them abroad during that time, always. They always go abroad. In that 3 weeks, it might be for a week, it might be 4 days, it might be 2 weeks, it changes. You need to have provision for that. Do they have to give you the dates in advance? Is it that holidays are split and they have to fit in their holiday abroad during the time they have the children? Do they have to give you a full itinerary? Do they need to get permission from you to actually leave the country? And really, they should. They should get written permission from you. They should write to you and say, thinking of taking the children abroad to XYZ on this date for 2 weeks. And this is where I'm thinking we'll be staying. Do I have your permission? And you would say, yes, that's fine. We don't do that anymore because the children, we've been doing this for a long time. But when you first start, obviously there can be issues around this. And in that holiday abroad, you can actually ask what happens. Where are you going to be staying? Give me the details of where you are staying. Give me an emergency number. Give me the schedule, your plan for the week, and who else is traveling with you? Who else is going to be staying with you? So that you are fully aware of what's happening with your children around that time. You can make arrangements to speak to them every day, maybe at 9 a.m. every day. You chat to the children before they start their day, for example. So think about the details of that. Decide on decision making. Parents should also think about how they make important decisions about children's upbringing. If you've both got parental responsibility, it means that both of you need to be involved around education, healthcare, where the child lives, as in which location, whether the child can live abroad, all of these major decisions, how are you going to make them? Usually it is a joint decision, and the law says it needs to be a joint decision. But sometimes if you have one parent living abroad and doesn't see the children very much, they might be happy for you to make big decisions for them. And then you've got smaller decisions. It may be that whether the child goes on a trip to Iceland, for example. You might both want to be involved, or one parent might be happy for you to make that decision. So you've got to think about all of these things. How are you going to communicate as well? Communication is really important when you're co-parenting. And you want co-parenting to be as effective as possible, communication lines to be open if possible. So think about how you can communicate. I organized to have an actual PDF calendar, and in that I put all the contact days whenever the children are going to be with my ex-husband, so that he had this PDF calendar that he could keep and referred to. I tried a shared calendar. He wasn't that keen on it, so that didn't work too well. And then later on, what we did, we had a shared note, iPhone note, and both of us could access this. And I put all the dates in there. I put important dates like parents' evening, half terms, anything that was important went in there as well. And every sort of 6 months, I would update this note so that both of us could see. And where things got changed, because sometimes you had to change contact, I'd just adjust it on there so it was clear. And then I'd keep them in red or something so it was clear they were adjusted dates. And this is what we were doing up until now. We don't do it so much now, but we had these sort of things. Lots of people are in situations where they cannot be speaking to someone on the phone. They cannot have WhatsApp or text messaging contact. And it may be that it's done by email then. And only in an emergency does that person say, ring your friend if they need to tell you something, for example. So think about how you could do this. And hopefully you do make a plan. Hopefully you do get to an agreement, but not everyone does. What happens if you don't? There's lots of things that you can do, but mostly it would be asking family and friends to help you be they would be the middle person to help you both communicate around agreements. You might be able to go to mediation where you have a professional that is there to help you reach agreements. If you can't agree through mediation, then it may be that you have to go to court and a judge will make that decision for you as to what happens to your children. And it is really sad when that happens because they're your children. You both should be working together to come up with what's best for them, but sometimes it's just not possible. You have very different plans for the children, and so you need someone to make that final decision for you. And once that decision is made, usually you are absolutely bound by it, and that is what the court will enforce. Obviously, court proceedings are a last resort. They are expensive, they're stressful, they're emotionally draining as well. So you don't really want to go that far, but sometimes there is no other option. So think about whether that is the case. And I mean, that's the end of what I wanted to share. And I hope I have to go through it quite quickly because there's so much that I want to share with you. And I hope there's something there that you've taken something away from. What I'll do next is tell you a little bit about how I work, and then I'll look at the questions that you've got as well. And just so you've got an idea, I help you get divorced with confidence, less stress, with a clear process, so you can design and live the life that you deserve. And that is everything that I'm about, especially with a fixed fee as well, so you're not worried. And I'll share a little bit about a client that just finished working with me. And I shared this on email yesterday as well, so you may have seen it. Amy is not her name, but I'll tell you a bit about this lady who was working with me. She's got one child, a daughter aged 10. And when she came to me, she cried a lot. Like, I think for the first few weeks, she cried. She was really scared and terrified of how she knew divorce was going to happen. She almost had no choice but to go ahead with a divorce, even though she knew her ex-husband wasn't going to take any steps towards this. He'd already moved out of the family home, but she knew she was desperate to keep things amicable. She wanted the best for her child, and she just didn't know how to go about a divorce that was without hostility and was amicable. She wanted to stay in the family home. That was her priority. And her ex-husband was also keen to do that, even though things changed along the way. And they often do. She works full time and she's the main carer of their child. She was really worried about finances because she just couldn't see a way through. And sometimes you just cannot see how things could work out. I have a process that I take you through so that you can see how to manage proposals, how they could work. I help you come up with lots of proposals, depending on your situation. She just couldn't see it until I started building out these proposals. And we worked through the viability of each one, the affordability of each one, the benefits and disadvantages of each one, and so that she could work out which one was best for her. And she didn't have very much money for legal fees. And what did we do? So we started working together. And as I said, when she found me, it was through social media, but she was very scared. And she really didn't know how to do this. She didn't want to work with a solicitor because she was scared of legal fees spiraling. They didn't have much spare cash. She'd heard stories of things costing, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, and she just didn't have it. And so she couldn't work out how she could do this herself and keep her fees down. And so that was one of the things that we really talked through. And then we also needed to work a lot on the finances so she could see the different options. And we had to get really creative around options as well, and gave her lots of options. And she worked with one of my contacts to make sure that the options we were coming up with were possible to do, which was really important for her to get clarity on her finances, but also to start the legal process, which we did together as well. So I'll just share a little bit about what we worked on first. So we formulated a vision first, which is really important. I need to know where you're going. Until I know where you're going, what your priorities are, what you're hoping to achieve, it's very difficult for me to give you an idea of how we get there. Once we had this roadmap, this idea of what we were doing, where we were going, and I know that it will change along the journey, but at least I know where we're starting. So we put that in place first, and that's through a call that we had together, a one-to-one call where we worked through where she was going. And then we started this DIY process of divorce. And that is actually what I help my clients with. They're doing it themselves, but you have got someone holding your hand, keeping you accountable, keeping you moving, and telling you exactly what needs to happen. So through this process, she submitted the divorce application with my help. She informed her husband that she was taking this step. And we started on this thing called financial disclosure, which is very scary for people. And then we prepared financial proposals. Once we'd done that, we came up with one that she felt was the right one for her, and I was happy with. And then we started negotiating. And it meant that through the negotiation, I was able to give her balance by stopping her from negotiating too high, stopping her from feeling the emotions around it, because sometimes when you're emotional, you don't negotiate well. So we kept talking through it. Every time she got an obstacle, we talked through it and we adjusted our path. And she actually prepared the legal documents herself across the board, separation agreement. She did her own consent order. And it meant that she was able to complete her divorce very quickly. But she worked hard. She did all the things I asked her to do. And she did move things through. So that was quite good. And this was her words. And this is what she said. We managed to get to an agreement. She got everything signed off to final order. So her divorce is done. Her financial settlement is done. Her child arrangements plan is done. She did actually decide to sell the family home in the end because she wanted a bigger place, and she felt that actually by selling up, she could move into a larger property, which is what she really needed. And this was her words, and she only shared this with me last week. So yeah, it's very new. If you've already made the hard decision of getting divorced, Bhavna is the place that is the person that will help you get there. It's not just about legal support, it's about the emotional support. And I make you think hard about your future, which is really important. There is only one opportunity to do this, and your future is what we have to think about, and how you are going to get there. When you're in the thick of things, it's difficult to see what your life may look like on the other side. I'll help you see your current financial situation so decisions can be made with all options considered. It's extremely useful in order for me to see what I could afford and fully understand how I was going to get where I want to be. I found the help with completing the legal forms, reassurance that they were filled in correctly, and helping me to understand the next steps was worth its weight in gold. It's not just legal advice, which people think that's what they need. You need somebody who brings everything together, really. Because when you can see where you are going, you can understand how it's going to look, then you can take steps with confidence because you are fully aware of all the pitfalls, all the things. I don't mince my words, and I'm really forward with telling you what I'm worried about. And these were her words still. I cannot recommend Bhavna enough. Divorce is difficult, but so much easier when you have someone in your corner, helping you every step of the way. I actively listen, create a safe space. You feel seen and heard, and she literally holds your hand to guide you through the whole process. And these were her words of thanks after she finished everything that she needed to finish. Your empathy, genuine, kind nature was greatly appreciated throughout this process. This is just one of many testimonials, reviews, whatever you want to call it, that I have. At the moment, I have a special offer running, and this was actually, this came about after my 5-day roadmap last week. Some of you may have been on it. So the program is usually 2,500, and by a program, it is your support network program. You get one-to-one help from me with setting this plan, one-to-one help with me to come up with financial proposals, and under this offer you get a third one-to-one as well, which you can take at any point in the 6 months. The remainder of the 6 months is on a group call. So this is actually through a community, which is massively helpful to those of you that need other people that are going through it, to make connections, to see what they're going through, to discuss things, but to see a legal journey through together, as well as obviously the rest of the journey, emotional, financial as well. So we have 3 group calls a week, and they're drop-in clinics. You can come in, ask me questions. I look at forms, help you with correspondence, everything you need. Pretty much whatever comes up for you, we talk it through. You can stay anonymous in the group if you want to. And even with the messaging support, it's private to me. You can stay anonymous in the messaging group, but you still get this whole group that are with you on this journey. You get resources and workbooks. I give you templates. If I don't have a template, I'll create it so that you've got what you need. We fill in forms together. It's a collaborative process, but you are doing the work, I'm checking it. You also get a free copy of my book, which actually takes you through step by step as well, the divorce planner, and a free VIP invite to this live event that I've got running next year, which will be absolutely amazing, and I'm really excited for it. So if you are interested in the program, then book a call. I'd love to speak to you to see if it's the right thing for you. During the calls, I can't give you legal advice because, as you can imagine, I don't know enough to be giving you advice on your situation. So the calls are to see if the program is right for you. So do book a call. And my book is available on Amazon if you wish to purchase it. There are downloadable resources as well. And these are different ways that you can get in touch, but I'll let Nelma put that in the chat box, and I will now look at your questions because I can see there are some questions there. My workplace and team helping me all these days, last 2 months, but now it is going to be a big hit. I need to go through consultation session and may end my work and personal life at the same time. I'm not sure why you're saying it may end your life. It definitely doesn't end your life. It's difficult, but Obviously, I've been through it, and I now run 3 businesses. I live in a blended family. I've bought a property, a bigger property for me and the children and my partner to live in. So my life is definitely not over. It just takes time. I thought I could manage child expense and mortgage on my own, but situation changed now. Any advice and support system available would be great. There are lots of support systems available. I do have a WhatsApp support group, which is separate from my work, but I can always add you to that if you would like to. If you want to be added, send me a direct message so that with your telephone number so I can add you. But obviously the program also might be a really good fit for you so that you can get these questions answered. Why you moved out of your family home? Are you the primary carer for your kids? Why did they ask you to move away? They didn't ask me to move away. I was keeping the family home as part of my settlement. We had a few properties. We had 4. And I was keeping 2 and he was keeping 2. I sold both of mine and bought a property mortgage free because I wanted to be mortgage free. My property was very, very big and it wasn't possible for me to manage. The mortgage was about $3,400 a month before any other expenses. Just wasn't possible with me having a 1-year-old I would have had to do 3 jobs to be able to afford everything and maintain that house. So actually, I wasn't forced to, I made the decision to, and it was the best thing I did. But you have to find decisions that are the right thing for you. Is it routine to ask the child's preference to live? I think I answered this one. Is it compulsory for the other parent to look after the child and have overnight stays? What should I do if the other parent refuses to take the child? You can't force a parent to have contact. I've had many situations where parents are not having contact because they don't want it. And I have lots of people asking me, can I force them? And you can't force them to have contact if they don't want to, let alone overnight stay. I've arranged counselling for my child and requested the other parent to take her to the session. And spend some time with her. How can I encourage him to fulfill this responsibility? Again, you can't force them. You can ask, you can encourage, you can let them know the benefits of contact, but you can't force it. Written doc in mail or text would work as agreed format. It doesn't work. I was not well for a week, but I requested him to look after. He said in message, but did not come. Again, you can't force it. A written document could be in a Word document, which you email to the other person. I wouldn't do it in text message because a document could be quite big. What if you are not on good talking terms? So then if you're not on good talking terms, it may be that mediation is an option. Mediation can be done in a shuttle mediation format so that you are not in the same room. The mediator comes between rooms. It may be that if you're doing it online, that there are 2 breakout rooms and both of you are in each a different breakout room and the mediator comes between them. But also it may be that mediation is still a good option because you might be able to talk through mediation. But if not, it will be court proceedings if you can't reach an agreement. You could do it in writing via email to each other. But again, it depends on how that works. It may be the other person doesn't want to email you, doesn't respond to questions. Did you have domestic violence? It's reassuring to hear it gets easier and you've come so far. And it's, a really important question. And I have to say, I share a lot about my journey, but there's certain things I do keep private because obviously I've got children. And although I share a bit about my journey, I can't share everything and exactly what happened in the marriage, just because I have to respect my ex-husband. I have to respect that my children might see things, so I don't share everything. But things were very, very difficult during the marriage. They were also difficult when I made the decision that it was at an end. My ex-husband didn't want it to come to an end, but by this point, I think I'd made that decision. And although I doubted it often, I knew it was the right decision. I was just scared. But when I could get a handle on my fear and get clarity and move forward, and that meant that I wasn't as scared anymore. But it does get easier, and life can be whatever you want it to be. As I said, I now have 3 businesses. At the time, I was scared because I couldn't afford my bills, let alone the thought of having 3 businesses. I've come a long way, and it comes from really working on your mindset, getting clarity, taking action every day, and not letting yourself sit in that place of, I'm divorced, my life is going to be terrible, because it doesn't have to be. It can be amazing. Husband is on probation for DV. He has problems with alcohol and drugs. I'm scared about children being with him overnight. I wouldn't allow my children to be around him for too long. Would courts make children stay with him overnight? He has said I'm keeping the children away and that I'm ruining their relationship, but he's very unpredictable. He had children on Sunday, yet he spent 1 hour of that arguing on the phone to me, telling me I was spoiling everything and breaking my family apart. Thank you for asking this question. It's a direct message. If they are on probation for domestic abuse, then quite clearly, that there was a serious issue there, which possibly they were found guilty of. He has problems with alcohol and drugs, and that obviously is a safeguarding issue. The domestic violence is a safeguarding issue depending on the severity. The courts would probably say if you went to court, no contact until we've assessed the situation properly, and then a decision would be made as to what type of contact should happen. If contact is not safe, even if it's a short time, your children have to be priority to you. So it may be that contact is not the right thing. Please, can I be added to the WhatsApp group? That's fine. Could I be added? How to get your time and advice privately. And by the way, the WhatsApp group is for women only. So I hope that helps. As part of the divorce program, do you take care of mediation? I can't do mediation on that. I am a mediator. I don't do mediation now, but during the program, I am telling you how to do it yourself. I'm guiding you, supporting you for a period of 6 months for a fixed fee, so that you are not worried about how many questions you ask me, how much help you get from me, whether we are doing court applications, maybe an application for a non-molestation order, maybe financial proceedings if you have to go that route. We don't worry about what we have to do. It's just a fixed fee for anything you need during that time. But I'm not doing it all for you, and I certainly can't do mediation for you in that situation. So I can direct you to mediators. I can guide you through mediation. I can help you come up with proposals, do discovery through mediation as well, so that you're getting a lot of support. Financial discovery, which is where you are transparent to each other around your financial assets, liabilities, income and expenditure. Through solicitors, it can cost £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 to do. I help you to do that, so we can maybe keep your costs right down. And we can start divorce proceedings and everything else you need. So it works really well for my clients. If this is something that you think you would like to know more about, book a call and we can talk it through and see whether it is actually the right thing for you. I did speak to somebody yesterday, and my diary is pretty full with calls. I only have 5 spaces on this offer, before I forget to say. There's only 5 spaces. I don't normally discount, because I know that if you can get through your divorce at that cost and everything is done, you've probably saved yourself £15,000 approximately, depending on how far you get. But if you manage to get the whole thing done, which some of my clients managed to get the whole thing done in 6 months, they have saved themselves a huge amount of money. So usually I don't discount, but for Black Friday, because of the 5-day roadmap I did, I've done a discount. It's for 5 people only. There's only 3 spaces left. I've got sales calls booked in the diary, so feel free to book a call if you want to know more. And it's only running to the 2nd of December. So just so you're aware, it's only running for a limited period as well. Do you help get statements ready for fact-finding hearings, Scott schedules? Yes. I won't do it for you, but I can guide you on what to do. I can give you templates, and then I can check it with you as well. Do you do both amicable and non-amicable? I don't split it like that. I do any divorce as long as it fits within what I think, I can support you the best way. Some people we always encourage amicable divorces, but it doesn't necessarily mean it happens because it depends on what's going on. It depends on sometimes when you've got to enforce boundaries because of whatever reason, the other person doesn't like it and things can get difficult. But I'll always tell you the consequences. But we can start off being amicable and we hope that it stays that way and we do everything we can to keep it that way because it's important if you can do it. But sometimes divorces aren't amicable and we won't know at the beginning. I just help you with whatever comes up for you. So we hope, but we can't guarantee. Okay, I think that's all the questions you've got for me. I'm going to stop there. Do reach out if you want to know more about the program. It's probably the right opportunity to get in there. There is a chance that the price is going up from January as well, and it's probably an opportunity to get in as quickly as possible while the fees are low. So look forward to hearing from you, and I will catch up with you very soon. Do let me know what you thought of today. Did you find it useful? Did you get something from it? Was there a takeaway that you could tell me about that you got from this session? You can put it in the private messages if you don't want to share. I'm sorry, that was my 14-year-old walking past. She's off school today. So do share what your thoughts are around what I went through today. I'm going to take myself off camera, but feel free to keep putting it in the chat box. And if you want to join the WhatsApp group, you've still got time to put that in the chat box. But just to say that's only for women at the moment. All right, you take care. Have a good rest of the day.